Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to finish up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. If you have your own song you'd like to submit for special selection, you can find a link to do so in the description below. Today's special selection comes at us from Tim. No context, resolve, beautiful hell. And I enjoy ones with context. I do. It's always nice knowing what I'm getting in for, but there's also just this air of mystery about not knowing anything other than possibly a thumbnail or an album art, and just having that pure wonder. What am I in for? What what am I being fed to today? And so yeah, let's dive into this. Resolve, beautiful hell. Let's see what beautiful man. What a title. Let's just get into this. So we're in 3/4. So we have emphasis on 1 and the end of 2, which is right in the middle. So now we're in 4. Bass led, clean vocals. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, so clean. Yeah, just really nice polyrhythmic idea right there. Can't tell what's going on with those vocals right there. Were the vocals being paired with synth? Yeah, and there we have a 3 against 4 idea. Yeah, that snare really laying down the 4 against that triplet vibe. Yeah, man. Halftime for the end of this. Interesting variation on the chorus. Really nice compression on that clean. And there is a synth here. It's really widening this sound out. Wait, what? Why is it over already? It's not fair. Why is it over already? It felt like we were just getting into it. Okay. Usually songs end with a little bit more notice than that. Maybe it is a revisit of an earlier idea. Maybe it is the end of a typical, kind of leaning on more typical structural ideas to showcase that we're moving towards an end. Sometimes there's a small variation in the final chorus that signifies this is the last time we're going to be hearing this. Usually, something that signifies we're moving towards finality. And that didn't happen here. And the thing is that the moment when the song transmits, hey, Bryan, we're about ready to wrap this up, start, wrapping your own thoughts up. It gives me this compartment to say, this is almost over. Let's, figure out what's going on here. Let's map out a little bit of uh, a linear progression for how we're going to talk about it. And let's start setting up the key points for the analysis. And this never gave me that. So when it was over, I didn't have a chance to pack up my reaction thoughts and begin formulating what the analysis would be. It's very weird. Uh, so, yeah, it's just very jarring. Instead of giving me a nice taper off to move into my analysis mode, it just shunted me in there. And now I'm supposed to be analyzing it. My brain is a little confused. So most of that was just me trying to give myself some resolution to that last moment to move into this. We are ready for this analysis section though. So the first thing I want to talk about is polyrhythm. I think it's the thing that stuck out to me most. I talked about it a lot in here. The song started and I called it 3/4. Not entirely sure I'm right there because that same exact rhythm pops up in the chorus and it was 3/4, but also I think I called it 4/4 the first two times it popped up, and the third time is when I noticed some of that rhythmic disjointedness. When you listen to where the cymbals are accenting, and you listen to how the bass kick and the snare are dancing around each other. Sometimes it's little quick notes that move into it, where your downbeat might be, the snare might be emphasizing a downbeat, and you get that da ga, just very quick. Um, that bass kick is so close to the snare. And other times it'll come after it where you get the kadu. And other times you get a nice even rhythmic. So you get the ka do ka. Just nice even space in between them. And I couldn't quite figure out what was going on there, other than the fact that it was sort of a bit of a mixed up Russian kind of feeling because of the asymmetricness of the 3/4. But no, eventually it clicked, and it dawned on me that we're actually hearing a 3 and a 4 here, and that's what's creating this alternating rhythmic pulse where sometimes the bass comes before the snare and sometimes it comes after, and sometimes they're extremely close together and other times they're spaced a bit more apart. Yeah, it's polyrhythm. And so we're getting some really cool things in the chorus that we also heard in the opening. Now, what's really interesting though is that the way that I heard the opening was 3/4 with a shifting bass kick strike. And I just thought it was a neat way to do it. We have this common rhythmic pattern where we have a strike on 1 and the end of 2, and that puts right in the middle. So we have one and of two, one and of two, um, and it creates a symmetric element within the asymmetric 3/4. The only way to divide that in half would be literally right in half, which would be on a half beat, like I said, the and of two or beat two and a half, which most people don't count half beats, not in the way that you think. We do, and like I said, the and of two, one and two and actually a fun little aside, if we want to go into quarters, we call it 1E and 2E and 2, 3E and. Um, so that allows us to subdivide phonetically for 16th notes if we're in x over 4 for our time signature. And so yeah, I just thought they were shifting around, but no, actually it works in 4 as well, and that's why it's dancing. It's just kind of bizarre not to notice it for so long, but then it clicked, and I realized the whole song's just polyrhythmic all the way around. It feels like it could be in 3 or 4 or 6 in pretty much any of the places of the song, and I think it's just real sneaky how not only they hide some of these depending on the section, but how they also go about emphasizing or bringing other ones to the spotlight for specific ones. And also, I'm fairly certain that some of those are going to be completely biased. You know, I heard 3 for the opening section and 3 for the verse, but 4 for the chorus. Even though, as I mentioned, the drum part for the intro and the chorus were the same, I didn't really catch on to that until the second time the chorus came around. But I heard that same drum beat in 2 different time signatures without realizing they were the same beat. Bonkers stuff. But, you know, I heard it that way, but I'm sure other people might hear it in a completely different fashion. And it really depends a little bit on what they're emphasizing, but it really depends also on what you're keying into. If you're going to be listening to primarily the vocals or the guitars, you might hear something different than me, where I was mostly listening to the drum work in most of these sections when they became introduced, because I don't know if it's because I just got done listening to Tool and I'm still in that time signature mindset. Um, or what, but every new section I kind of keyed into the drums, and unfortunately instead of taking it all in as a whole, I was keying into specific instruments, which was informing me of what time signature I initially felt each of these sections in. But yeah, there's this amorphous element to this song where it feels like it could be a lot of different things at any time, time signature wise, and I think that's just really impressive. Um, the way that they hide some and bring others to the forefront, and you know, just confuse me. Like I said, it's very rare for me to hear the same idea, not pick up on the polyrhythmic context, but to hear the two rhythms in 2 different sections and not realize that I heard the same thing 2 different ways. Uh, really blew my mind at the end of the track when I was like, dang, that was a polyrhythm the whole time. That was the same line. Like, wow. Uh, just, like I said, blew my mind. The other thing I want to talk about, because, okay, so musically, bass and guitars, um, and even a little bit of the vocal. I don't want to get into the vocals. I want to look at the bass and guitars right here. So I think this is metalcore. Um, and I'm primarily basing that on some of the overall sonic qualities, but also the idea of bouncing back and forth between more rhythmic, heavy hitting ideas with harsh vocals and more melodic chord based stuff, light, a little lighter with clean vocals, and jumping back and forth between those based on verse and chorus. That's pretty much Metalcore 101 if you're wanting to emulate some of the major names in modern melodic metalcore. Um, so we have these more rhythmic sections coming off the front, but I want to put a little bit of emphasis on what the guitars and bass are doing. They could simply be holding out a single pedal tone and just kind of playing along with a rhythmic breakdown chugging kind of idea with whatever the drums are doing, but I don't know if it's because they wanted to push outside of those bounds a little bit, or if it's because the drum is doing a lot of ideas at once. that the guitar and bass sort of get sucked into a bit more of a melodic element, even in this more textural setting. And I absolutely love that. Much like the drums bringing in the polyrhythmic aspects, this is a way for something that's a bit more traditional, sound-wise, to change up the formula a little bit. And so while the chorus is mostly some chords being played to harmonize or to lay down the foundation for the vocals to sing over, the verse does see a little bit of variation on the idea and brings about some interesting things that kind of spices up the metalcore formula a little bit. Now, vocally, this is another place where I was quite happy with what they were doing. There is the metalcore harsh that comes in the opening, and I was a little worried, as usual, when it comes to metalcore, that this was going to be the only thing that we heard, but I was pleasantly surprised, not just when we got some cleans to go along with it, but also when they mixed them. There was some really nice sections of layering harshes and cleans. Interestingly, in the first chorus, I think there was a harmonizing of the vocals with a synthesizer. I'm still not 100% sure what was underneath the vocals. Like, the vocals are the most prominent thing. Clean vocals with a little bit of grit given to them every once in a while, kind of leaning into a harsh, but not going full on into a harsh. And there's something underneath it. Synth, another voice. I'm not really sure, honestly. And if anybody has an answer to that, I'd like to know. I don't think it popped up in the second verse because we began to layer the harshes underneath instead. But I do think it was an interesting way to bring something synthy into the picture, because after that, I began to hear the synths on the sides way out, and I don't know if that was there the entire time, and maybe I was focused on the polyrhythms and the guitars and vocals and just getting acquainted with everything. I hadn't gotten to that point yet. But it was at this point I realized that there is this big synth sound sitting outside the band that really makes the song sound a bit bigger and larger than it is. So I'm curious where else that might have been, and if there was anything else I missed in that first verse. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the variation that we hear all throughout this track. First, I mean, like I just mentioned, the difference between the choruses, we hear a different underlying harmony with the clean vocals, but there's also a lot of vocal variation as well, even within an idea, but also when you compare it to another. I think you can easily tell that the two choruses, despite having similar work being done underneath, is probably two individually recorded sections rather than just recording the chorus once and copying it to the next time the chorus comes around in the audio workstation. And it's just these little variations, especially in the vocal work, of when he leans into a clean, when he puts a bit of distortion on a clean, when he pulls in more of a bit of a fry to accent a specific syllable or word before coming back down to a clean. It's these little embellishments that keep it fresh and retains a separate idea than what we heard in the first chorus. But we also hear some rhythmic changes in the two verses as well. And then finally, during the bridge, I think this was the big key moment for me to really get this polyrhythmic idea hammered home, because we shifted back to the 3 or 4. I don't remember which one was solidified in my head, but it wasn't long before it just started doing these real hard snare hits, just hitting it every beat. And I was like, wait, that's not the beat that I'm jamming to. And that's when I was like, oh, it's polyrhythm. But it was really nice because I'm pretty sure this was the same snare beat from the intro, just without all of the extra bass kicks and tom hits and cymbal work around it. And it's just the snare. And we got to move that into the chorus, which again was another variation on the intro drum beat, or drum pattern. And I got to hear that snare get everything put back in around it. And that's when everything clicked for me. Like, this was the moment when I was given the key to the puzzle. Like, the key is the snare. Listen to what the snare is doing against everything else. I was like, whoa, galaxy brain mode. And I need to go back and listen to the song again because I am assuming some of the earlier sections were polyrhythmic based on a vague idea of what I remember, and what I do remember very clearly being the key signature or the time signature of those sections. But since pretty much everything after the halfway point felt like polyrhythmic to me, I kind of assume, especially since we saw a lot of similar foundational ideas, the two verses were very similar, the two choruses are very similar, that we also saw polyrhythmic aspects at the beginning too. And you know, it's just it's real interesting to listen to a song one way and then get given that one piece of information near the end, and you're like, this recontextualizes everything. It's like when you watch a film and then you get the twist at the end and you're like, no way, that means that this meant that. Yeah, that's what happened to me here. They gave me a key to unlock the whole thing. And it was through variation. They allowed me to hear something I had heard twice over now in a completely different light, and then brought back one of those other variations on top of this new variation. Or I guess a stripping down. It is a variation, but it was a stripping down, and then brought things back and allowed me to hear it again in the whole context after giving me the focus. And it's just, yeah, it's little variations like that that I think keep the song fresh. However, they did have a bit of a variation at the end. Our structure, I think, fit something along the lines of verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus. I think that's where we went with this. And there was a bridge moment. This was when we stripped everything down and focused on the snare. And then we had a chorus that was, I think it was a chorus. Maybe we went back to the verse. I don't remember. The ending just, it jarred me so much. I think my brain shunted all information of like that final 30 seconds out. That never happened, man. I'm sure there was a very calming, natural finale to the song. You just don't remember it. I think that's what my brain did to me. It refuses to let me remember it. But something happened at the end. I think we went back to being heavy, and it just abruptly stops. Very different from what a lot of bands are doing, and very different from everything else in here, which had smooth transitions between the different ideas. I wouldn't say that they were phenomenal transitions or that we had any sense of foreshadowing or everything or anything, but there is just a sense of flow between everything. Nothing really felt like it was, just jammed up against a different idea. And part of that may just be that a lot of the guitar tone and texture and sound and atmosphere, and even drum work, a lot of actually there were a couple nice drum fills that moved us from one idea to the other, but a lot of the guitar, the bass, the vocal work was pretty similar throughout, despite the variations, but they all have very similar tones and atmospheres to them. I'm not saying they were identical, just similar enough that they just kind of blend over from one idea to the next without being jarring. And then we get that just hard stop at the end. It just kicks us out of the song. Hey, last stop, song's over, get out the bus. And, I'm real curious what all this means. Obviously we have polyrhythm most likely everywhere in the song, so there's themes of opposing ideas, or two sides of the same coin, or just any duality like that is what I'm getting out of this. Every part of the song can be felt in two at least meters. And there's certainly some anger in here. I don't know if that's just the style of the music or something we'll find in the lyrics as well. And then just that sharp ending. That's sort of the story I'm told here, is opposing ideas, maybe one that's a bit calming, one that's a bit aggressive, and a very abrupt end in the story. Very different from a fade out, which typically implies that whatever's happening will continue on, either infinitely or just for a while past where the story ends. This one just stops. I think we're going to hear a very harsh bit of finality in the lyrics. So, speaking of which, let's dive into these and see what's going on. It says, I can't recognize myself. The venom has taken control. Lost in this suffocating hell I call home. Deliver me. Yeah, there's pain and anguish here right off the bat, and I'm pretty sure we were screaming at the beginning of the song as well. Again, not quite sure yet if that's just part of the style of music. It is metalcore, there's going to be harsh vocals, or if that was intentionally designed for this specific stanza. But yeah, there's pain. Um, there's a loss of self and an entity that does not belong. Um, It says, my grave, my peace haven, my shelter, my asylum. We have opposing ideas here. This is where he dies, but it's also where he's most calm, and it's also where he finds home and comfort, but it's also where he's held captive. A rainforest too much explored, a holy grail still unheard, of years spent crawling in the jungle left me with nothing but indelible scars. All right, we've shifted metaphor to a forest and a jungle simultaneously, um, searching for something that was not there and just left them with scars. So all the negatives of the journey with none of the positives. Never found this holy grail. Poison ivy in my backbone, propagating on its own, inhaling the steams of my self-ignited blaze. No way out of this maze. I'm lost in this beautiful hell. So yeah, once again, just this entity impeding upon his body. It was a venom the first time, and now it's poison ivy this time, feeding off of him. Interesting, the first time was just a venom that took control, and now we see that he's actually contributing to it. This poison ivy is propagating on the steams of his self ignited blaze. So there is some negative emotion towards himself that is helping this entity grow in strength. If this daydream is all that I have, I'll turn it into something beautiful. I'm trying to see through the haze. Is it a monster or a miracle? Let me taste the sour taste, or let me tame the sour taste. Let me tame the bitterness. This is my way to escape. I'm lost in this beautiful hell. So basically, right, just questioning if he can control this entity. Maybe there's something to be gained from it, some sort of parasitic. No, not What is it when it's a cyclical thing? Parasite's one way, isn't it? I don't know. Either way, he's thinking that he can gain something out of this entity residing within him if he can learn to control it. A stranger to myself, lost in someone else's tale, blurry sights and bones exposed, a single-celled parasite. Well, there's that word. Sight of endless rivers, sight of millenarian trees. Help me find a difference between truth and fantasy. I was going to say, I think this one's pretty self explanatory, but maybe not. I mean, he's a stranger to himself, so he doesn't recognize who he is anymore. I already stated that at the beginning of the song. Feels like he is in somebody else's story. Again, not recognizing the person he is. Blurry sight and bones exposed. A bit going over my head. Single celled parasite with the sights of endless rivers. Yeah, that one's going a bit over my head. Definitely, though, there's some sort of hallucination here. He says, help me find the difference between truth and fantasy. Maybe this ties back into the old idea of can I control it? Maybe he tried and it backfired. Now he doesn't know the difference between reality and fantasy. My air, my asphyxia, my venom, my dementia. Ooh, okay, okay. So I think this is where the metaphor starting to click. Before I thought it was, I didn't know what the metaphor was. There's definitely something inside of him that's changing him. It could be, even something as simple as angerness or resentment that can, if you hold on to it, change you, right? I mean, that's a venom. Any sort of substance abuse can be seen as a venom that changes you. And takes you over. You lose control of yourself. Like a venom within could be anything, but here brings in the idea of not being able to tell what's real and what's not, and brings up the idea that my venom is my dementia. So I wonder if this is not a substance or an emotion or anything else, but if this is mental degradation. So please come with me. We can hide in my chrysalis, safe from the trials and tribulations. Together we'll learn how to tame the poison. We go back to the idea if this is a daydream, I'll turn it into something beautiful. Back to the chorus. So yeah, I'm focusing on a single line or a couple of lines that might lead me to think that the venom is mental illness. Um, and trying to tame the mental illness. Even says that, what I'm seeing might not be real, but maybe I can turn it into something beautiful. And in that, maybe I can find a way to escape in this beautiful hell. It's not my memories I'm remembering, but at least they're not bad memories. Let's see if I can just live out the rest of my days in peace, even if it's not a reality of peace. Interesting. Yeah, there's definitely this duality though. There's, him who he remembers and this other person that is controlled by the venom that he doesn't recognize. We have the duality there and sort of the amorphous element of it that he even says that he can't tell the difference between reality and fantasy, and that sometimes it's one, sometimes it's the other. Even the idea of the venom can also be poison ivy, can also be, what was another one he used? The parasite. There was another one too, I think. Um, yeah, it's just it has a lot of names and it's sort of just visually morphs in my mind, which fits with the idea of the time signature not really being something that I can really put my finger on in some cases. It really feels like a lot of things at once. Sort of like an illusion. Sometimes it's three, sometimes it's four, sometimes it's six. Uh, so yeah, I think it works. Musically, metalcore, I think it's just a metalcore song with lyrics on it. I don't necessarily think that the heavy rhythmic verses and the more melodic choruses and the harshes and clean vocals, I don't think any of that really plays into the themes here. This really is just a bunch of lyrics that go along on top of a metalcore song. However, I do think the time signature themes are very prevalent here, and they create a lot of they create parallels between the idea of the self and the mental illness that I think is the metaphor here. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I'm probably gonna have to dig into some more because I do like melodic metalcore. My band that kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone of radio rock was Tears Don't Fall, Bullet for My Valentine. I'm sure a lot of people have opinions about that band. But there are probably a lot of people who also were kind of pushed into heavier music because of that song. I think it's a really great bridge song. I really do. For all the flack the band gets, I think they did a really great job bringing people in. Anyways, getting off topic here. That melodic metalcore. I listened to a lot of it growing up because of that song. So there's a lot of things in here that it's very comfortable. It's very home to me. But they also do a lot of really interesting, unique things within that sound and really push the boundaries of the genre in ways that I'm really enjoying. So, yeah, like I said, Resolve is a band I'm going to have to check out, especially since this album dropped in 2021. And, that's their latest one. Oh, it's only their second album. Yeah, this is a new band I got to get into. I got to see what's going on here. They have one EP and two albums, maybe three albums. I don't know. Man, this website's just not great for this. I'm gonna have to go check Rate Your Music or something and see what's going on with this group. Anyways, those are my thoughts on Resolve's Beautiful Hell. This is where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments with your thoughts. If you agree with me, disagree with me, if you have your own perspective on the lyrics, if you have your own thoughts on the time signatures. And like I said earlier, let me know what you felt with those meters. And I'm curious if they were just different from what I felt. I really do think that the time signatures are, like I said, kind of amorphous, and everybody's going to walk away from this with different feelings for what they are. And they really could be felt in so many different ways. There isn't a prominent one, but there is one if you focus on specific instruments. When you're done commenting, you can head up to the description box, and in there is a link for Linktree. It'll take you to this menu right here. You can pick up some merch, join the Patreon, join the Twitter, check out what special selections are coming up next, submit your own, just a bunch of stuff. Go ahead and check it out. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. We're going to continue on with something. Wild Time Signatures Week. And we're going to check out another special selection. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.